The rain started before sunrise, the kind that drummed against the windows like a warning. In the kitchen, Detective Samir Daoud sat at the table with his badge tossed beside a half-empty cup of coffee, scrolling through old case files on his tablet. He didn't hear his daughter come down the stairs until her small voice cut through the hum of the rain. "Dad," Hana said, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "You're going to be late." Samir looked up, eyes tired, smile automatic. "You sound like your mother." "She'd say it nicer," Hana teased. He chuckled softly. She was 15, sharp, fearless in the quiet way that made people underestimate her. Her best friend Lena waited by the front door, impatient, twisting her braid. Lena's parents were away for the week, and she had stayed over last night. The girls were inseparable. A bond Samir admired but sometimes feared, because they made each other bold. "You two be careful," he said, standing to kiss Hana's forehead. "I'll pick you up after school. No detours, no new adventures." Hana smirked. "Since when do adventures wait for permission?" Samir sighed. "Since I started working homicide." They laughed, and for a moment, the world felt simple. He watched them run out into the rain, jackets pulled over heads, splashing through puddles toward the bus stop. He didn't know it would be the last time he saw them both safe. By noon, the city felt heavier. Samir was in his office, reviewing the case that had haunted him for months, a failed sting operation involving a human trafficking ring. They'd arrested one of the leaders, a man named Rashid Khouri, but 2 others had escaped during transport. Rashid's brother, Tariq, had vanished into the city's underbelly, promising revenge. It was a threat Samir had brushed off at the time. Criminals always threatened. Most never followed through. At 2:17 p.m., Samir's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it until he noticed the message preview. "Check your daughter's school parking lot." He froze. The number vanished after sending, message deleted. His heart hammered. He dialed the school, voice shaking slightly as he asked for Hana. "She never made it back after lunch," the secretary said. "We thought she left early with a parent." He didn't wait for her to finish. He was already running. By the time he reached the school, the parking lot was half empty. A shoe lay in the rain near the gate. Hana's. His stomach turned cold. Lena's backpack was found 10 meters away, its zipper ripped. Police swarmed minutes later, radios crackling. Samir moved through them like a ghost, barking orders, searching every corner, every bush, every car. He knew the pattern. He knew how kidnappers moved. But knowing didn't help when it was his daughter. Officers pulled footage from the school's cameras. Samir stood behind the tech, gripping the chair until his knuckles whitened. On screen, Hana and Lena walked across the lot laughing. Then a black van slid into frame. Tinted windows, false plates. One man stepped out, tall, hooded. The girls turned, startled. Within seconds, the man grabbed Hana. Another appeared from behind and seized Lena. A struggle, brief, violent. Then the van door slammed and they were gone. Samir's breath hitched. The tech paused the frame. The second man's sleeve lifted just enough to reveal a scar across the wrist, circular, burned. Tariq Khouri had that scar. Samir's vision tunneled. "They took them," he whispered. The precinct erupted into motion, roadblocks set up, alerts pushed out. But Samir knew this was personal. Tariq wasn't after ransom. This was revenge. At 5:40 p.m., the first call came. A distorted voice through static. "Detective Daoud," the man said calmly. "Long time." Samir's throat tightened. "Where is she?" "Alive, for now." "You took my brother. Now I take your blood." Samir's hand trembled. "Listen to me, Tariq." "No," the man interrupted. "You listen. You have 24 hours. Release Rashid, or the girls die." The line clicked dead. For a long moment, Samir just stood there, hearing nothing but the rain outside. Then he moved. Fast, purposeful, controlled by instinct. He stormed into his captain's office. They took Hana and Lena. It's Tariq Khoury. His captain's face drained of color. Jesus Christ. Samir, I'm sorry. I need clearance to negotiate. We can't release Rashid. Then I'll do it off record. You can't. It's federal custody now. Samir slammed his hand on the desk. They'll kill her. The captain hesitated. We'll find another way. But Samir didn't believe him. He'd seen too many cases end with a call that came too late. Night fell heavy and wet. Samir sat in the car outside the station, hands shaking around the steering wheel. He played the voicemail again, searching for background noise. Faint hum. Maybe a generator. Muffled barking. Metallic clang. Industrial area, probably outskirts. He knew the city's industrial zones like veins. He'd raided half of them. Only a few matched that sound profile. He circled them on a map, marking potential hideouts. Meanwhile, in a dark warehouse miles away, Hana and Lena sat tied to chairs, duct tape biting their wrists. Hana's cheek was bruised, her hair matted from the struggle. Lena trembled quietly beside her. The man watching them paced slowly. Tall, scarred wrist, eyes cold. Your father? He said to Hana. Cost me everything. My brother rots in a cell because of him. Hana spat blood and glared. So you kidnap kids to feel powerful? His mouth curved into a cruel smile. Children hurt more than bullets. He turned away, checking his watch. If your father loves you, he'll come, Hana whispered. And when he does, he'll kill you. The man chuckled softly. The hospital's fluorescent lights hummed like tired bees, and Hana couldn't tell if the trembling in her hands was from adrenaline or cold. The blanket didn't help. Neither did the cup of water she couldn't finish. Lena dozed in the next bed, a quiet curl of breath shifting the tape on her cheek, where a minor cut had been patched. Samir stood near the doorway, speaking in low tones with two detectives Hana didn't know. They kept glancing at her as if she were a bomb with its timer still running. She stared at her wrists, the faint red grooves left by tape. When she closed her eyes, she saw the warehouse again, the flare of the flashbang, the way the scarred man vanished into rain like a shadow returning to its wall. She breathed through it slowly, the way her father had taught her as a kid when storms rattled the windows. Count the lightning, count your heartbeat, wait for the thunder to pass. The detectives left. Samir stepped in, softer now. You're safe, he said again, as if repetition could make it truer. For a little while, you won't go anywhere alone. Officers will take you to and from school. We'll move you both for a few days. Hana's head lifted. Move us where? A safe apartment. Different part of the city. Unlisted. I'll be there. And Mom? She asked. The word smaller than she meant it to be. Samir's jaw tightened. She's flying back tonight. He didn't say from where. He didn't need to. The distance between their lives had been measured in airport gates for years. Lena stirred. I don't want to go back to my house, she whispered. You won't, Samir said. You're with us. By evening, rain stitched the streets together like thread. They left through a side exit, two plainclothes officers bracketing them, eyes flicking across the parking lot with the ritual paranoia of people who know the world too well. They loaded into an unmarked sedan. Hana pressed her forehead to the cool glass and watched the city smear into lines of light. The safe apartment overlooked a narrow alley and the backs of restaurants. It smelled like someone else's furniture and fresh paint. There was nothing on the walls and too many locks on the door. Samir showed them the deadbolt, the chain, the slider. He checked the windows twice. He moved like a man whose body still believed the warehouse was around every corner. No social media, he said. No posting. No location tags. No routine. Lena nodded quickly. Hana nodded slower. At 2 a.m, the intercom buzzed. Everyone froze. Samir went to the panel and pressed the tiny metal button. Who is it? The speaker hissed. A voice drifted up, distorted by static and rain. Delivery. Samir's eyes narrowed. We didn't order anything, Wylens. Then a faint clatter in the alley, like a bottle knocked over. Then nothing. Samir grabbed his gun and went to the window, looked down into the narrow slice of wet brick. No one, only the drain swallowing water. He locked everything again and came back to the couch, where the girls had fallen asleep under a single blanket. He sat in the armchair and watched the door until dawn. The morning brought coffee, and with it, the illusion that plans mean control. Samir laid a city map on the table and started marking points. The trafficking ring used shell warehouses, he said, more to himself than to them. They rotated sites. We hit one. Rashid took the fall. Tariq moved the rest. That generator, those dogs, the shipping yard was a feeder. There's another site nearby. There has to be. Dad, Hana said softly, you can't go alone again. I'm not, he lied. Lena stood by the window, peeking through the blinds. Someone's down there, she whispered. Samir moved fast. He joined her at the window. A man stood half hidden by a dumpster, hood up, facing the building, not moving, waiting. When Samir's phone vibrated in his pocket, the number on the screen was blocked. Answer it, Hana said. He did. The voice was a different one this time. Higher, quicker, breathier, like a man trying on menace he hadn't earned. Morning, detective. Comfortable? Come upstairs, Samir said flatly. We'll talk. No, you'll run. You always run to law. This time law can't help. Your daughter is a message. The case is a mess you made. Bring my brother or we will finish what we started. You failed last night. We collected the rest, the voice said, almost gleeful. You want your girls safe? Choose blood. Bring Rashid, the line clicked. The man by the dumpster looked up toward their window as if he could see through the glass and counted their lungs. Then he turned and melted into the alley's mouth. Gone. They're still watching, Lena said, throat tight. Good, Samir muttered. Let them watch me come. By afternoon, the interagency task force met in a room that smelled like dry erase markers and mistrust. A federal deputy reminded everyone in polished phrases that Rashid Khoury would not be released. An intelligence analyst pulled up grainy maps and databases. Someone in a suit used the word optics twice, which made Samir's teeth ache. He's not bluffing, Samir said. Tariq doesn't do theater. He does endings. We won't negotiate with terrorists, the deputy said. Then give me a wire, Samir replied. I'll negotiate without negotiating. The room argued around him. The captain caught his eye and gave a barely perceptible nod that meant, do what you're going to do, and I'll pretend not to know. The deputy caught the nod and didn't like it. They compromised like people do when everyone still wants to sleep at night. Samir would wear a wire, carry a tracker, and meet Tariq on neutral ground in view of a surveillance team. He would stall. The team would triangulate the second site. A tactical unit would hit it. Everyone would pretend this wasn't a tightrope strung over fire. The meeting place was a public market by the river. Loud, crowded, perfect cover. The air was wet with fish and diesel and rain that didn't know whether to stay. Samir moved through it with a paper bag in one hand and a wire pressed to his ribs, listening to his own heartbeat in his ear. He felt eyes finding him like hands. Tariq appeared by a stall selling oranges, his hood up, his scar a pale coin above his wrist. He smiled like someone who owned the weather. Detective, he said, picking up an orange and weighing it. You look tired. Where are the other girls? Samir asked. You left before you saw the back room, Tariq said, amused. We moved them at dawn. And Hana? She got lucky, Tariq said, then cocked his head. Or maybe not. Luck is just math we don't know yet. Samir's jaw worked. Tell me the price. Rashid, Tariq said, as if ordering off a menu. This afternoon. Van comes with him. You drive, I watch. Then I give you coordinates. And when I bring him, I give you the wrong coordinates, Tariq said cheerfully, and see how fast you figure it out. You won't risk it, Samir said. You want him back too badly, Tariq grinned. You overestimate my heart, and you underestimate mine, Samir said, stepping closer. Look at me. Really look, Tariq did. A small frown flickered. You'd kill me in a crowd? I'd drown with you if it meant pulling you under, Samir said. The wire recorded his voice steady as a metronome. So let's stop pretending. Silence stretched, thin and sharp. Then a phone vibrated in Tariq's pocket. He glanced down, smirked, and turned the screen for a split second so Samir could see a live feed. The hallway outside the safe apartment. A grainy figure at the door. Keys. No, tools. Samir's blood iced. "What did you—" "I'm not at war with you here," Tariq interrupted. "I'm at war with the people who believe your badge is a shield. You have a leak. Someone you trust is my friend. Look there, not at me." He tossed the orange, caught it, and walked away, vanishing into bodies moving like a river that didn't care whom it carried. Samir stopped listening to the wire chatter in his ear. He ran. The safe apartment door showed no damage. The locks were intact. Inside, the couch was still rumpled with blanket. The mugs still held the semicircles of their lips. Hana and Lena were gone. "Hana," he called, and the echo came back empty. His phone vibrated once. A message from an unknown number. Check the photo on the table. On the table lay a Polaroid that hadn't been there that morning. Hana and Lena sat in the back of a van, hands zip-tied, fear making their eyes too big for their faces. A hand in the frame held today's newspaper with the date circled in red. Behind them, the wall of the van was spray-painted with a symbol Samir recognized from old files. A scorpion tail curled around a letter T. Tariq's fallback mark. His phone chimed again. A voice message. He pressed play. "Detective," Tariq said cheerfully, the sound of tires on wet road beneath his voice. "Do you like riddles? Find the tail." "The sting is always in the tail," the file ended. The room felt smaller. The scorpion. The tail end of the river where it hooked around the shipyard and curled beneath the eastern bridge. The tail. The sting. He called it in. Within minutes, a swarm of units moved like a single organism toward the river's eastern hook. Helicopters floated into the gray like metal jellyfish. The deputy's voice filled the air with commands and cautions that Samir stepped around like puddles. He reached the bridge before anyone else, the world narrow and loud with water. Beneath the span, the concrete pilings rose like the legs of a giant crossed through the river. Old graffiti climbed their skins. Among it, fresh paint bled black and wet. The scorpion and its tail coiled around a letter. Not T.F. Samir's stomach dropped through the bridge. The deputy's voice called in his ear. "Hold perimeter. Tactical is 2 minutes out." Samir stared at the black F dripping on wet concrete and felt something ugly click into place. "Who's on the girls' escort detail this morning?" he asked, voice flat, a pause. Pages turning. The deputy read names, one of them cold and familiar. Fadi al-Masri. 10 years on the force. Friendly, always early with reports, always quiet. Always there, Hana's Fadi uncle. F. Samir ran. The floodgate at the river tail opened with a groan like a throat clearing. Beside it, an access road lifted into scrub and chain link. A service building hunched beneath the bridge's shadow. Metal doors padlocked, windows black. Samir cut the lock with bolt cutters. Someone thrust into his hand and pushed into darkness that smelled like damp iron. Voices. Faint. A cough. The whir of a small space heater. He moved low, gun forward, breath steady because his hands weren't. He cleared a storage bay. Empty. A second. Tools, ropes, stains he didn't inventory. The third. Hana's voice. Small, trying not to be. "Dad?" His body moved before his mind registered the sound. He shouldered the door. It gave, and the dim room snapped into sense like a rubber band let go. Hana and Lena sat on the floor, wrists zip-tied to a steel beam. A man stood between them and the exit, gun up, face turned away. The barrel swung toward Samir, stopped in the space where love and duty meet, and from the angle of the cheekbone and the small scar near the jaw, Samir felt the world tilt. "Fadi," he said. The gun didn't lower. The man didn't turn fully. The voice came back thin. "I told them not to bring the kids back here. They don't listen to me anymore." "You brought them here," Samir said, each word its own breath. "I brought them somewhere I could keep them alive," Fadi said, and finally looked at him. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands shook. Rage, fear, both. Tariq wanted worse. "I couldn't—" "Drop the gun," Samir said. "We end this right," Fadi's laugh cracked. "There isn't a right. You broke the rules the day you squeezed a confession out of Rashid with no warrant, no counsel, no time. I wrote you up. They buried it because your case was clean on paper and mine wasn't. You sold us for a grievance, Samir said, the floor giving slightly under everything he thought was true. You sold my daughter. I traded you for my brother, Fadi said. And in that instant, Samir remembered the hospital 6 years ago, the sheet on the gurney, the bullet that never found the man who fired it, and the way grief rotted when it had no grave. Fadi had never forgiven Samir for choosing a bust over a body. Sirens washed the room with blue through the slit of a window. The tactical team had arrived. Orders barked outside. Boots scuffed concrete. Time stood up and started running again. It's over, Samir said. Drop it, walk out. Let me take the weight. You can't carry this, Fadi whispered. You never could. The gun wavered toward Hana. Samir fired once, a controlled snap. The shot took Fadi in the shoulder, spinning him into the wall. The gun clattered. Hana screamed. Lena sobbed. In 3 strides, Samir was on Fadi, kicking the weapon away, pinning him by the wrist. Fadi didn't fight like a man who wanted to live. He fought like a man who wanted to be punished properly. They're at the flood tunnel, Fadi gasped, blood slicking his sleeve. The girls you missed. They'll move them when the sirens die. You have 15 minutes before the river swallows the floor. Samir bound his hands with a zip tie and dragged him to the wall. Outside, a breaching charge blew a door somewhere, echoing like thunder. Officers poured in, took the scene, hands and voices everywhere, and still all Samir could see were his daughter's wrists. He cut Hana free. He cut Lena free. He pressed his forehead to Hana's and let the seconds break over them like the river's skin. More girls, Hana said, breath ragged. Dad, we're going, he said. He handed her to a medic and turned to leave. Samir, Fadi called, voice fraying. I'm sorry. Samir didn't look back. Me too. The flood tunnel was a concrete artery under the city, pulsing with water and secrets. They reached the access hatch with bolt cutters and bad prayers. The tactical team led, a wedge of black moving into darkness. The air was cold enough to bite. The ceiling dripped. The radio barked maps and corrections in their ears. They pressed on, feet splashing, lights knifing through damp air. Around a bend, chains clinked. Whispers stopped. A door slammed. Samir ran. He swung around the corner and almost collided with a man dragging a crate on a dolly. The man's hand flashed to a gun. Samir put him down with a single merciless strike. He tore the crate open. 3 girls blinked up at him, blinking in shock like birds that had hit a window and somehow kept flying. You're safe, he said, and knew it was a promise he could only keep for the next 90 seconds. Move, the team leader barked. Water levels rising, they moved. They opened crates. They cut bindings. They led a thin, staggering parade of children toward a light that didn't exist before they made it with their feet. Behind them, a voice rang down the tunnel, light and terrible with delight. Detective, you found the tail. Tariq stood on a catwalk above them, a shadow inked into the concrete. His gun traced lazy arcs in the air. Drop it, the team leader shouted. Or what? You'll shoot into a crowd of children and make my point for me? Tariq laughed. I needed a myth. You've given me one. Samir stepped forward. End it with me. Gladly, Tariq said, and fired. The shot sparked off concrete near Samir's shoulder. Ricochet screamed. The team returned fire in controlled bursts, shepherding the line of children forward as water licked their knees. Tariq moved along the catwalk like a dancer on a bad dream, firing and vanishing, until a lucky round from a sniper outside kissed his thigh and his dance ended in a stumble and a fall that knocked the breath out of his laugh. He hit the grate with a sound that told everyone he wasn't a myth after all. He crawled, leaving a smear. A child screamed at the blood because children always think it belongs to them. Samir climbed the ladder like a younger man and met Tariq on the platform where the tunnel narrowed into something that wasn't escape. Tariq smiled up at him through his pain, eyes bright as if someone had told him a joke that would kill him in a minute. You could have traded Rashid, he whispered. You chose this. I chose her, Samir said, the pronoun big enough to cover every child he had found and everyone he had not. Tariq closed his eyes and whispered something in a language Samir didn't know how to forgive. He didn't finish it. The team's medic dragged Samir back down the ladder, and the tunnel filled with the sound of children sobbing and boots pounding, and radios saying the word clear like it could bless concrete. Outside, the sky remembered it was supposed to be blue. Ambulances lined the service road like confessionals. Hana stood there with a foil blanket around her shoulders, Lena's hand in hers, both faces wet with more than rain. Samir walked toward them, every step a stitch pulling him back together. Hana's chest hit his, and the world lost its sound for a while. Later, when statements were taken, evidence bagged, and the flood tunnel sealed like a mouthful of bad teeth, the deputy approached Samir with a look that meant paperwork and politics. Samir didn't stop. He walked past him to the edge of the river where the water curled like a scorpion's tail around the city and watched it carry everything it could away. "Is it over?" Hana asked beside him. "For now," he said. "That's never the same as yes," she said, and he loved her more for knowing the difference. That night, back in a different safe apartment with less paint smell and more blankets, Hana couldn't sleep. She went to the kitchen for water and found Lena at the table, staring at her hands. "You okay?" Hana asked. Lena nodded, then didn't. "There's something I have to tell you." Hana sat. The clock over the stove ticked too loud. "When we were taken," Lena whispered, "they knew your father would come, but one of them said something else." He said, "The other one will too." "The other?" "He didn't mean Tariq," Lena said. "He meant a cop. I heard them say his name. Fadi. And something else. Before they grabbed us the first time at school. I thought I recognized one of them, not his face. The way he walked. I've seen him near your house, more than once." Hana's mouth went dry. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know then," Lena said, voice breaking. "I didn't want to be wrong." Hana stared at the dark window and saw their reflections like ghosts pressed against the glass. Her father had arrested a man he respected that morning. Tomorrow he would testify. Next week, the news would turn it into whatever fit their graphics best. The rain had stopped. Somewhere. A dog barked as if it had remembered a story it needed to finish. Hana squeezed Lena's hand and made a quiet promise to herself that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with living through it. She would not let this be the last line that defined them. And from a bench outside the building, a man with a bandaged shoulder watched the light in their kitchen go out. He sat very still in the dark, and the wet bandage stiffened in the night air, and his breath fogged in small clouds. That meant he was still deciding which story he belonged to. 3 months later, the world had the nerve to keep going. Buses still groaned through intersections. Morning news still played traffic reports between weather updates. People still forgot umbrellas. The city didn't care who had bled under its bridges. Hana had learned that was what healing looked like from far away. Life pretending it never paused. She and Lena were back in school. Teachers walked on verbal tiptoe around them at first, but teenagers have short memories and long lists of their own emergencies. Within weeks, homework and cafeteria noise replaced pity. Hana liked it that way. She needed ordinary things. Math problems, bad lunches, the noise of lockers slamming. She wore long sleeves to cover the faint scars on her wrists. Lena wore headphones most days and sketched silently. They didn't talk much about the warehouse or the tunnel. Silence was its own truce. Samir returned to duty after the inquiry. There were hearings, forms, press questions. Some nights he sat on the porch with a beer he didn't finish, watching cars and pretending to read the paper. The department had given him a commendation for bravery and a reprimand for insubordination. The perfect balance for someone who saved lives by breaking rules. Hana saw the medal once, tucked in a drawer, already forgotten. The apartment changed, locks replaced, curtains light again. On weekends, they drove to the coast where the air smelled of salt instead of metal. Lena's parents thanked Samir too many times until he finally told them to stop. None of them wanted gratitude tied to fear. The city's cases didn't stop. A month after returning, Samir caught a robbery string that led to a small warehouse fire. The reports called it arson. The files said coincidence. But when he looked through the photographs, his eyes caught on a symbol half melted into one of the walls. A scorpion. Crude. Incomplete. The tail curling toward nothing. He closed the file without saying anything. He didn't tell Hana. She had earned her distance from that shadow. Spring came. Hana joined a self-defense class after school, against his initial protests. She said it helped her sleep. He watched one session from the corner, how she moved through the drills, how the instructor corrected her stance, how she smiled when she got it right. She wasn't learning to fight people. She was learning to stop freezing. One night, she found him in the kitchen, staring at an envelope. Internal affairs had cleared him. The letter said he could request promotion. He asked her what she thought. "You always say you hate the desk," she said. "I hate the quiet." "Then maybe it's time to try quiet," she said, and smiled small. He stayed at the desk. He read files, trained younger detectives, came home earlier. He cooked more, badly, but it became routine. Routine meant normal. Normal meant alive. Lena started therapy. She began painting murals at a youth center. One of them showed two girls standing under rain with their reflections reaching toward each other across water. The reflections were taller, stronger. People said it was beautiful. She didn't explain it. Sometimes Hana walked by the river. She would stop near the bridge, the one that still hummed at night with trucks overhead. There was a plaque now, dedication to the victims of the trafficking case. Her father's name was carved among the investigators. Someone had added a small scorpion etched into the corner. Maybe graffiti, maybe memory. She touched it once, then let it be. Summer folded into another year. Tariq's body had never been recovered. Rumors said the river carried him into the sea. Samir told himself that meant he was gone for good, but he still checked the mirrors when he drove too long at night. On Hana's 17th birthday, they ate dinner with Lena and her family. There was laughter. Real, round laughter that reached the edges of the room. When the cake came out, Lena leaned close and whispered, "Do you ever think about the other girls?" "All the time," Hana said. "Me too." After everyone left, Hana stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights blurred into a haze that looked almost like stars. Her father joined her, resting his elbows on the railing. "You did good," he said softly. "So did you." He looked at her sideways. "We'll never be the same." "No," she said. "But maybe that's not bad." Below them, the street hummed with traffic and voices. Somewhere a car alarm chirped once, then stopped. A dog barked twice. Ordinary noises. She held onto them like proof. In the distance, thunder rolled over the skyline. The smell of rain returned, steady and familiar. Hana tilted her face up, let the first drops hit her skin, and closed her eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't count lightning anymore. She just listened. 1 year had passed since the flood tunnel, and the city had learned new noises. Construction cranes replaced sirens. Summer storms came and went. Most nights, Hana could almost believe that what happened belonged to another version of her. Then, on an ordinary Thursday, the phone rang at 3 a.m. Samir answered first. He was half asleep, already reaching for his badge before his mind caught up. A uniformed voice on the line said words he hadn't heard in a year. Shipping yard, unmarked van, 2 missing. When he hung up, Hana was standing in the hallway. "It's happening again, isn't it?" He wanted to lie, but lies don't work between people who survived the same darkness. "I have to check it out," he said. "Then I'm coming." He started to protest, saw the look on her face, and stopped. She was 16 now, taller, sharper, not the girl who'd waited to be rescued. He handed her a jacket and said, "You don't leave the car." The yard was cordoned by flashing lights. Floodwater still pooled in the dips of asphalt. Samir's breath smoked in the cold. An officer waved him through, nervous. 2 containers had been broken open, both empty but for ropes and a set of numbered tags. One of them had the faint black outline of a scorpion. "Someone wants you to see this," the officer said. Samir crouched, touched the mark. The paint was still tacky. From the car, Hana watched her father through the windshield. Her eyes caught a flicker of movement near the perimeter fence. Someone small, moving quickly. Before she thought about it, she was out of the car. "Hana!" Samir's voice chased her, but she was already running. She slipped between the fence and a storage shed, the beam of her phone light shaking. The figure stopped ahead, half-turned. It wasn't a man. It was a girl, maybe her age. Dirt on her face, wrists red. "Hey," Hana whispered, lowering the light. "You're safe." "Come with me," the girl flinched. "He said you'd come," she muttered. "He said to give you this." She held out a folded paper, then bolted into the dark before Hana could stop her. Hana opened it. A single sentence in thick marker. "The river never forgets." She barely had time to read it twice before her father's hand gripped her shoulder. "What did I tell you?" he snapped, then saw the paper. The anger drained out of his face. "Where did you get this?" She pointed toward the fence, but the girl was gone. The next days turned into long hours of waiting dressed as work. Samir followed the lead quietly. The department called it a hoax, but he knew better. He'd seen too many ghosts wear real shoes. Hana kept the note in her desk drawer. Sometimes she took it out, stared at the handwriting, blocky, deliberate, and wondered if it was Tariq's or someone else's trying to wear his memory. 2 weeks later, while walking home from school, she saw the same girl sitting on the curb outside a corner store, biting into an apple like someone who'd forgotten how to eat. Hana crossed the street. "You," she said. The girl looked up, wary. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should you." Hana sat beside her. "Who is he?" The girl's voice was a whisper. "The man from the river. He's not dead." Hana's breath caught. "Tariq?" The girl nodded once. "He's building something again. He said the detective's daughter would lead him to the rest." Hana's stomach dropped. The rest? The ones who stopped him. When Hana looked up, the girl was already gone again, leaving only the apple rolling on the concrete. That night, she told her father everything. His face went still, the way it did when he was scared but couldn't show it. "We'll call it in," he said. But the next morning, the girl from the street was found by the river, alive but barely conscious. No memory of the night. On her wrist was a faint scorpion tattoo, fresh, not healed. Samir drove home without the radio on. Hana sat silent beside him. Outside, the river ran high from recent rain, brown and fast. He said quietly, "If he's alive, he's using kids again." Hana turned to him. "Then we stop him again." The rest of the week blurred into plans. Samir requested temporary transfer to the river district. Hana started digging online, tracing old case names. She found forums where people whispered about the Scorpion Network, half conspiracy, half truth. One post caught her eye. The tail moves when the head sleeps. That night, she heard footsteps outside her window. When she looked, no one was there. Only a small package left on the ledge. Inside, a flash drive. She waited until her father was asleep, then plugged it into her laptop. A single video file. The screen flickered to life. Grainy footage from inside a tunnel. Water dripping. Voices whispering. Then a face stepped into frame. Tariq. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. He looked straight at the camera. "You think the river ends here, Hana? Every current finds the sea." The video ended. Her heart thudded. She turned the laptop off, sat in the dark, listening to her own pulse. Outside, the first drops of rain started again. The storm deepened overnight. Thunder came slow and distant, like something walking closer. Hana sat at her desk, the flash drive still plugged in though the screen was dark. She could hear her father snoring lightly down the hall, the sound steady, proof that at least one thing in the house was still human. She should wake him, tell him about the video, but she couldn't yet. Not until she understood why it was sent to her and not to him. She played the file again with the volume low. Tariq's eyes were calm, the way people's eyes get when they've decided that consequences don't exist anymore. Behind him in the frame were children's drawings taped to concrete. Stick figures, suns, water. She paused it, zoomed in. One of the drawings had words scrawled in a child's hand. "We live below." Her throat tightened. Below what? She opened the drive's directory again. There was another file hidden under the video, a text document. She clicked it. 2 lines. "Where the tail ends, the heart begins. You're the only one who can stop the flood." Her pulse jumped. Heart. Flood. River. Metaphors or maps? The next morning, she told her father everything. His first reaction was silence, then anger, the kind that hides fear. "You watched it without me? You were asleep." "Hana," he said my name. "He sent it to me." She leaned forward, hands shaking. "He's alive, Dad. He's rebuilding. Underground, maybe." "What if the kids?" Samir rubbed his face, the stubble rasping under his palm. "You stay out of it. Promise me. I'll take this to cyber. They'll trace it. They won't find him," she said softly. "They never do." He didn't answer. By evening he was gone, called to the precinct. She couldn't stay still. She opened her laptop again, staring at the paused frame of the drawings. "We live below." There were old flood tunnels that ran beneath the East District, sealed decades ago. One had been used last year. What if another had reopened? She searched city archives, her screen glowing pale against the rain-dark window. After an hour, she found something. construction permits near the riverfront, an independent contractor, renovating sections of storm drainage for private storage. The company name was Tail Industries. Her stomach dropped. She took a screenshot, grabbed her jacket and left a note on the table. Found something. Need to see it myself. Don't freak out. Outside, rain hit hard enough to blur streetlights. She biked toward the river, the wind cutting through her sleeves. By the time she reached the industrial district, her shoes squelched. The address from the permit led to a fenced compound with Tail Industries stenciled on the gate. One light burned inside, faint yellow behind corrugated walls. She chained her bike, slipped through a gap in the fence, crouched between crates. Water dripped from somewhere high. The air smelled of rust and oil. She moved closer to the light and saw an open door. Inside was a room that looked too clean. Metal tables, computers, maps of sewer lines pinned to a board. In the middle sat a tablet looping security footage. She crept closer. The footage showed the same girl from the curb, walking in and out of different tunnels, leading groups of children. A voice behind her said, "You shouldn't be here." She spun. A man stood in the doorway, hood pulled back. Not Tariq. Someone younger, sharper, but the same scar curved faintly along his forearm. "Who are you?" Hana asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "His student," the man said. "And you're his test." He stepped closer. Hana grabbed the nearest thing, a wrench, and held it up. He smiled faintly. "Brave, he said you'd be." Then a shout echoed from outside. "Police, hands up!" Her father's voice. The man cursed under his breath, turned, and ran through the back door. Hana darted after him. She saw her father's flashlight beam sweep across the yard. "Hana!" he yelled, spotting her silhouette. "This way." She shouted back, chasing the runner toward the riverbank. The man leapt onto a half-collapsed dock. Boards cracked under his weight. He turned, gun flashing silver in the stormlight. Hana ducked behind a piling, heart hammering. Samir fired once. The man slipped, fell backward into the river's black water. For a moment, all they heard was the rain. Samir reached her, pulled her close, shaking with adrenaline and fear. "What did I tell you?" "You'd have missed him," she said, tears mixing with rain. He sighed, holding her tighter. "You're grounded for life." They searched the bank until dawn. No body. The current was too strong. Diverse came up empty. Back home, Hana sat wrapped in a blanket, the flash drive on the table between them. Samir stared at it like it might start breathing. "If he's dead, someone else is carrying his work," he said. "The guy said he was a student," she murmured. "That means there's a school." He looked at her. "Then we close it before it opens." The next weeks became patterns of search and watch. Samir worked quietly with a handful of trusted officers. Hana went back to school, pretended normal. But sometimes she caught glimpses. Men watching from across the street, a car idling too long near the corner, a shape reflected in store glass that disappeared when she turned. One afternoon, a new girl transferred into her class. Short hair, scar on her neck, polite smile. During lunch, she sat beside Hana and whispered, "He said to tell you, the sea is waiting." Hana froze. "Who?" The girl's eyes didn't blink. "The one you left in the water." Before Hana could reply, a teacher called her name, and when she turned back, the seat was empty. That night she told her father. He didn't doubt her. He just picked up the phone and called for a citywide alert. "He's recruiting again," he said. The next morning, the news reported missing teens from the coastal towns. 3, all last seen near the docks. The pattern was back. Samir gathered his team. "We end it this time." Hana watched him gear up and thought about the flood tunnels, the message, the word heart. She opened the city's maps again and realized something. The tunnel's layout formed the shape of a heart where they converged under the old pier district. The center point, the heart's tip, was beneath the desalination plant at the edge of the bay. She ran to the door. "Dad, I know where!" He didn't argue. Within an hour, units surrounded the plant. Steam rose from vents like breath from an animal. Inside, the machinery hissed and dripped. The tunnels beneath were wide, lined with old pipes. Samir led the entry team. Hana waited with the medics above, but the longer she waited, the stronger the hum in the ground became, like engines waking. Then she smelled gasoline. She ran toward the stairs. A guard tried to stop her, but she slipped past. Below, the tunnels glowed orange. Her father stood at the far end, shouting into his radio. Beside him, barrels marked with the scorpion symbol leaked fuel into water. "They wired it," he yelled. "Move everyone out!" A figure stepped from the shadows, Tariq limping, pale, alive. He smiled through the flicker of flames. "The river never forgets," Hana screamed. "Dad!" Samir turned, saw her, swore. "Out now." Tariq lifted a detonator. "No more cages," he said softly, and pressed the button. For a second, nothing. Then light. The blast shook the ground, roared through the tunnels, blew steam and water skyward. Hana was thrown back, hit metal, saw sparks burst behind her eyes. When she woke, sirens wailed and smoke curled into the dawn. They pulled survivors out for hours. Paramedics covered faces, carried others. Hana's leg was cut, her ears ringing. She kept asking the same question. "Where's my dad?" They found him near the entrance, alive but burned, clutching the detonator's shattered casing in his hand. Tariq's body was never found again. Weeks passed. Hospitals, therapy, news interviews. Samir recovered slowly. Hana stopped having nightmares only when she started running at sunrise, the air clean and cold. One morning she reached the pier, looked out at the calm water, and thought she saw a ripple that looked like a tail curling before it vanished. She whispered, "The river forgets after all," and walked home. 5 years later, the city had a different skyline. New towers rose where the old docks used to stand, glass catching sunlight where smoke once lived. The flood tunnels had been sealed, paved over, forgotten by most people who didn't know what waited beneath. Hana was 21 now. She lived in a small apartment on a hill that faced the sea. Every morning she ran the same route, down to the rebuilt pier and back. The scars on her leg had faded to thin silver lines. Sometimes she caught herself tracing them absent-mindedly and smiling, not because she liked them, but because they meant she'd survived. She was studying criminology, something that would have terrified her father at first. But he was the one who'd mailed her the application. "You already know how the dark works," he'd written. "Maybe you can teach it to behave." Samir had retired early after the explosion, a quiet man with a limp and a greenhouse full of succulents. He said plants were easier than suspects. They either lived or didn't, and neither outcome lied. Once a week they met for breakfast at a cafe by the river. He always ordered the same thing. She always changed her mind. The ritual was their truce with time. This morning he was already at the table when she arrived, a newspaper folded beside his coffee. She kissed his cheek, sat, and noticed a small envelope resting next to her plate. "What's this?" "Graduation gift," he said. Inside was a key on a simple ring. No tag, no label. She looked up, confused. "To what?" "You'll see," he said, smiling the old half-tired smile. "Come on, I'll drive." They left the city behind, the road curling along the coastline until cliffs rose and fell into the water. After half an hour, he turned down a narrow gravel track lined with pines. At the end stood a small boathouse, newly painted, perched over a quiet cove. "You bought this?" she asked. "We both did," he said. "Technically, the department bought it first, back when they were using it for training. I took it off their hands." He opened the door. Inside, sunlight poured through wide windows onto a wooden floor. The air smelled of salt and new varnish. A small radio sat on a table, humming static. "You always said you couldn't hear the sea from the city," he said. "Now you can." She walked to the window, looked at the water folding itself against the rocks. "It's perfect. You'll need somewhere quiet if you're going to write that thesis." She turned, smiling. "You read the outline?" "Of course. I want my name in the acknowledgments." He joined her at the window. Outside, gulls dipped low. The tide was coming in, slow, patient. "Do you still think about him?" she asked softly. Samir didn't pretend not to know who she meant. "Sometimes. Mostly when it rains." "Me too," he nodded. "Then we'll keep watching the weather." They stood there until the sun broke free of a cloud. Light filled the room, bright enough to erase the shadows for a while. Samir reached for the radio and tuned it until a song caught. A soft, old melody that sounded like forgiveness trying out its voice. Hana closed her eyes and let the sound and the wind mix together. She thought about tunnels and rivers, about how water always finds a way forward even after being blocked, She thought about all the names she'd written in her notebooks. The lost, the rescued, the ones still waiting, and realized she didn't hate the memories anymore. They were just the map that got her here. When she opened her eyes, the tide had reached the base of the pier. Sunlight shimmered on the water, and for a heartbeat, she imagined she saw something move beneath it. A dark curve fading into depth, a tail curling and letting go. "The river forgets," she whispered. Samir looked at her. "What?" "Nothing," she said, smiling. "Just the past saying goodbye." He chuckled quietly, the sound of a man who finally believed it might be true. They stood together in the doorway of the boathouse, sea breeze lifting their hair, the horizon clean and wide, and for the first time in years, neither of them looked back.